So this is part 2 of the Writing Your AVP Script lecture. And obviously, if you're already here and you didn't see part 1, then you should go back to the website and start with part 1 first, because this might be too overwhelming if you don't see the first part of the lecture. Okay, at the end of that lecture, I tell you to actually go back to your worksheets or to finally start doing your worksheets so that you actually have something to start with in terms of putting together this script. So this video presumes that you're already done with your worksheets and that you're already done listening to part 1 of this same lecture. That's also all up on the website. Now, this part 2 of writing your AVP script is really about looking at both structure and content, which is what you have from the last AVP lecture. And I want you to realize that the structure is something we've been doing all this time, beginning, middle, end, introduction, body, conclusion, even when we didn't call it that. And content is everything that you have in your worksheets. So these are the words, and this is the basic structure that you already have a sense of at this point in time. So there really is nothing to fear about putting together these scripts at this point. What this lecture is about is format. And the thing with writing the AVP script, and any script for that matter, is that so much of how it can work and how it can work best in the setting of wherever it is you're going to use a script in depends on whether you're using the format correctly, whether you actually know the value of the format. And this is also why a chunk of your grade for writing the AVP script actually comes from format, because we want you to come out of this course having a very clear sense of what a script looks like. And the AVP script is the best way to start with learning that kind of skill set, because it's as simple as it can be, but also it can get very complex depending on the projects that you have later on. Now, for me, what has been most helpful as far as putting together scripts are concerned is the fact of this. It forces you to think in 2 columns. And I think this is something that I've learned is quite liberating, because you are being forced to use 2 aspects of your creativity. You're not just thinking about words, you're also thinking about images. You're not just thinking about how something looks on the page, but how something looks on the screen and how best to represent it on screen. But also you're being forced to think about how it sounds. So those 3 layers come together in putting together a script. And the script as an exercise really is about forcing you to divide your thinking between words that will be spoken or seen and those that are written on the page, on the script itself. But also it forces you to think about, to imagine what it can look like on the screen and what it can sound like. So we're talking about images, but also we're talking about graphics, we're talking about animation, we're talking about sound effects. And I think that's a very good thing to play around with in our heads. And even when we don't end up writing scripts and we just end up doing direction or cinematography later on, or doing graphic design, having a sense of what the script looks like also allows you to enter it as another member of that team that puts the AVP together. So it's a good thing to have in the back of your head, even if it's something that you might not use. For you guys in MMA, you will be using this script for putting it together in your video classes. So hindi siya pointless exercise is what I'm saying, whether within MMA or for when you graduate and end up doing other things. Okay, now the format is key, and this will make sense as we look at the following samples. I'm going to walk you through it and through the most important parts of it, because I think these are the parts that you need to at least have a handle on before we let go of the AVP script. Now, you're going to do the first draft, and I'm going to give you comments, and then I'm going to give you time to edit it, which is why you need to get on with actually working on this script already. Okay, so let's start with this screen cap. This is actually from a student script that I received a couple of terms ago. And I think it's important to highlight three things here. The first one is the title. I've told you this the past so many lectures, and I think it's important not just to always have a title for everything that you write, but also that you make the title creative. Why? It captures your audience's attention. Kahit yun lang, just that basic thing. And you need to realize that you are your own audience. What title would make you want to watch your own AVP? So think of it in that way, right? Your audience is your generation. So what is it that your generation would want to watch? What is it that would hook them into watching a 3-minute AVP on an issue that they might not even think is important, or they might not even know actually exists? Another thing I want you to look at here, this is his introduction part, is the fact that he is working with existing videos. When this script was put together, we didn't have a pandemic, so there was a good possibility that this student could actually go to Taliptip, Bulacan and take these videos himself. Now, the thing is, since then, the conditions have changed. So, for you guys, I want you to work with existing videos. So this means that you're really going to be doing research, because I want the sources of those videos. I want them to be part of the list of sources that you have to put together for this AVP script. The sources are important because you will be using those for when you finally execute this video. And it's my own way of checking whether or not those videos actually exist. Now, in the ideal scenario, of course, you should be able to take your own videos. But even then, say there was no pandemic, you would be encouraged to make sure that the videos that you imagine you want to use for your AVP are videos you can actually take. So my favorite example is the students who were talking about the West Philippine Sea, and they were all imagining like drone shots, doing drone shots over the Spratlys. And I'm like, guys, even for professionals, that's actually close to impossible. And so why would you risk your life just to get a drone shot of, what's happening there and what Shiny is doing there? So you want to make sure that when you think of videos, that these are actually doable, that these are actually videos you can take yourself. In the time of the pandemic, of course, all I'm asking for is that you choose videos well from whatever is in existence online. So this can come from current events shows, it can come from newscasts, it can come from advocacy groups and groups that actually have been talking about these issues far longer than we have. Okay, the third thing I want you to look at is the OBB. The OBB is the opening billboard, and you're all required to have an OBB, and later on I will mention the CBB, which is the closing billboard. Now, these are part of your introduction, technically, but they're a very small part of it. Think of it as your title page if you were doing a book or a thesis, right? So what does the OBB contain? The OBB appears before your introduction. It can have context shots, it can have your title, and it can have your subtitle. This actually, along with your introduction, already establishes the look and feel of your AVP. So if it's already dramatic scenes with dramatic music, then of course this is what your audience will expect out of that AVP. If it's already happy music, very light, with, you know, colors that are bright, then maybe that's what your audience will expect out of the AVP. Make sure you have the title, and if you have a subtitle, on there in the opening billboard as well. It establishes the tone, which is, of course, part of look and feel. And lastly, it captures the attention of your audience. So this doesn't take long to do. This can be like 5 seconds of just showing, establishing shots of what it is you're going to talk about. It can be another, 5 seconds of flashing your title on the screen. And now, the thing with doing this script is that you're actually looking at a very basic skill of alignment. When we talk about alignment, I want you to be able to keep track of where your lines fall. Okay? For example, on this screen cap, you're looking at this soundbite, audio from news videos. So this is different audio that just supports whatever it is that is the stand of the writer of the script. While that audio is being heard for 10 seconds, what it shows in the graphics is a construction plan of the airport. Okay? And what appears in the news in relation to that construction. So for 10 seconds, you hear sound bites of maybe the people who are pushing for the airport, talking about why it's a good thing, etc., etc. And it shows all the fancy construction plans of the airport as well. Now, this is 1:1, no? Pantay siya, which means that this 10-second mark, 25 seconds to 35-second mark, is equal to the amount of time the construction plan of the airport appears. Now, it's the same for this one. Suddenly, the sound effects become guitar instrumental, and then there will be a montage of images of Taliptip residents. So, obviously, it will show where they live, what the community looks like. It will be shown how impoverished they are. And while this image is showing, you will have the sound effects come in. And that will lead to images of fisher folk, which is what most Taliptip residents are, and fisher folk talking about Taliptip and talking about the airport and what it means to them. So from 36 seconds to 43 seconds, that's 7 seconds, this is what you're seeing. Sound effects relative to montage, and then fisher folk image relative to a fisher folk speaking up. 7 seconds. So this is 1:1, right? And this is what's crucial about writing the script. Your alignment needs to be clear because your time here on the side of the audio is equal to, is relative to the time that an image or a video spends on the side of the video. So you want to make sure that your alignment is on point, and you're going to be graded on that alignment because it's part of format. I need to be able to see clearly what's happening on the audio side relative to the video side. And the only way that works is if you're very clear why one thing is aligned with another at any given point. So for example here, the VO starts, displacement is inevitable. When that happens, it's still the fisher folk, right? In that first line. And then in the second line, once the project commences and no assurances has been given for the residents so far, you're going to see the establishing shot of a sunset in Taliptip. So, malinaw na dito pa lang lalabas yung new image. And the VO starts with still the same images from the previous soundbite, right? So that kind of alignment is important. It's the only way I can grade you. It's also a way for you to be clear about what audio appears relative to the video. Okay? Sorry, you can hear the neighbors doing something. Okay, now Alignment is important because this is also audio-video lock. Whatever's being said on your audio side corresponds to images on your video side. And audio-video lock is crucial. This is what an AVP is all about. It's actually what all videos are about. You want to make sure that what's being heard is also what's being seen. And all of that is deliberate. Nothing is ever shamba. Nothing is ever bahala na. It's always all well planned, and it's well planned in a script. Okay, now we want to thresh it out a little more in terms of how script works and in terms of what the format looks like and why it looks the way it does. Which brings us to this one, okay? So, on the left side is your video column and on the right side is your audio column, okay? This can be interchanged. This is just the way I'm used to doing it. But depending on the industry that you're writing a script for, this can actually be on opposite sides, right? The more important thing is what it contains. Now, two things that we want to talk about in relation to alignment. The first one is that there will be a tendency to be very simplistic about it, which is what you saw in the earlier screen cap, no? Where there's one-to-one correspondence. And many new writers actually end up doing that. Parang 10 seconds of this equals 10 seconds of this image. 3 seconds of a sentence equals 3 seconds of an image. Tapos ganun lang siya tuloy-tuloy. Now, what is wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with it except that it starts to look like a slideshow. And so, very rarely is it done for actual videos, for actual AVPs, right? So, you also want to make sure kasi that it's not boring. And the video side is supposed to be that part of it that makes it unboring. So, you want to make sure that it's as dynamic in and by itself relative to the audio. So, what you're saying is, of course, the most important thing. But this time kasi, you're saying it not just through words, but also through images. So, you want to make sure that those images are moving. So, let's look at this, screen cap. Okay. You're looking at a 10-second VO. And in this 10 seconds, we're being told that you're going to see a close-up shot and then a wide shot of Ate Teresita preparing breakfast for their family. And then there's a medium shot of Ate Teresita. Do you think that 10 seconds is too much for showing Ate Teresita moving about in her home? Okay? Now, this is, of course, very subjective. I think it's not a bad assessment of how long it would take for Ate Teresita, how long it would take to establish that Ate Teresita is preparing a morning meal, right? But I would include maybe first a shot of her home, and then we enter the house, and then we show her preparing the morning meal. Maybe that's a little more... that's a better use of the 10-second time duration, right? So that maraming nangyayari dun sa video habang sinasabi mo itong VO na ito. Okay? When it finally rests on Ate Teresita, it's right at the time when she starts talking and she speaks for 8 seconds, this one sentence. And it's not babad at all. When we say babad, it's not just static on her. What it does is, Ate Teresita is talking, it's still on her face, it allows you to finish that whole sentence of 8 seconds, but also by the last, or maybe the second, between the second and, see, this is, okay, in that last part, maybe the last 3 seconds or 4 seconds, graphics appears labeling her as a Taliptip resident. Okay? Not bad, because then you know that the image moves still. So, within that 8 seconds that Ate Teresita is on the screen, there is movement on the screen because she will be labeled Taliptip resident. Right? So, there will be movement in terms of graphics, and that's a good thing. Okay? And then it moves to another this is 12 seconds, where we move to a wide shot of Ate Teresita's house and then extreme wide shot of the Taliptip community, and it shows their way of living. So maybe relative to the waters, okay? So the VO starts, and at the tail end of that voiceover, maybe the last 6 seconds of the 12 seconds, there will be a wide shot of the San Miguel Corporation head office in Mandaluyong and a close-up of the company emblem. Now, you can already imagine how powerful this is going to look. You're going to first show the wide shot of Ate Teresita's house. You're going to show a wide shot of the Taliptip community and what it looks like, their way of living in the waters. And then you shift to a shot of the fancy corporate headquarters of San Miguel, which is building the Bulacan Airport. And then a close-up shot of their logo, their emblem, just as you say, local business giant San Miguel Corporation. Pretty cool, huh? So this is the kind of not just alignment that we want to see, but also this kind of creative thinking. You're not just thinking about the words being said by your voiceover and by your interviewee. You're actually looking at what images will best represent these words that you have on the audio side. And these images are actually pretty solid, and none of them are static. All of them are moving images. Of course, you can use photographs, absolutely, but make sure they're moving anyway. So there's a way of making that all animated, right? Especially if you're talking about an issue that you can't find source videos for. That's totally acceptable. But if there are videos available, better to use videos. Okay? So here you see that Aling Teresita's movement in the video side is also the movement of the text on the audio side. And this is really what video, audio lock, and alignment mean. Okay? So for the audio column, a couple of points. One, voiceover is all caps and bold. Okay? Again, the voiceover, the text for the voiceover is all caps and bold. Direct quotes from guests and interviewees are sentence case, not bold. So voiceover is all caps bold. Direct quotes from guests or interviewees are sentence case. So let me show it to you again. So voiceovers, all caps bold. Interviewees are sentence case, not bold. Okay. Now, I want you to look at the timestamps. This is important because you want to be able to measure how much time you're spending on saying something, because that also dictates how much time you're spending on the images on the video side. So, for example, here you have For example, here you have 15 seconds for what seems to be a very long voiceover, right? Now, in this 15 seconds, we are being told that we're going to see graphics of a mock-up plan for the interior of the airport, which is the Aerotropolis, and then a tracking shot of mangrove forests, and then a wide shot of families in Taliptip area. Now, is 15 seconds too much time? Would that be equal to babad? Maybe, maybe not. It really depends on how dynamic those images are. Syempre, when you're talking about graphics in terms of a mock-up plan, I'm thinking in terms of an animated version of the mock-up plan for the airport. Then that wouldn't seem so long, as opposed to just showing us a slide where you see a mock-up plan for the airport. The tracking shot is a moving shot, so that seems more interesting and would make the 15 seconds seem shorter. Okay? Establishing wide and medium shots of the office of Nicolas Roque, who is a Municipal Agriculture and Fisheries Council Chair of Bulacan, happens in 9 seconds. Is that too much time? Maybe. Because we don't know what Nicolas Roque is doing while those wide and medium shots are being established. Is he walking in the office? Is the office empty? Is he talking to someone, etc.? If it's just shifting between wide and medium shots of the office, medyo boring yung 9 seconds na yun lang ang nangyayari. So if you want to do establishing shots like this one, you would want to have Sir Nicolas doing something, talking to the community, I don't know, fishing, working in his office, walking into his office, so that it doesn't seem like you just included those images because you didn't have anything else. So here you see that what we're really talking about is how much time is too much time. And that really depends on you. There isn't a set of rules for it. I do think that what you can do always is to try and cut back on the spoken part first. So is there a way of saying, for example, this 9-second voiceover in a shorter way? The same for this one. Is there a way of lessening the 15 seconds? Just because 15 seconds seems like a long time for a static voice to be speaking. So you want to be able to decide for yourself what would make it move a little quicker and what would be the best use of your time. The fact is you only have 3 minutes for this AVP, so you want to make sure that you're using your time well, and that is what a script is all about. So for the timestamps, the format is just as important. They must appear in your audio column. Okay, so they appear at the end of your voiceovers, at the end of your sound bites, at the end of your interviewees. Okay, so you want to make sure that they are on the side of audio, but they actually represent what's on the video side. They're on the side of audio because that's actually your peg. How much time something is spoken or is said is your peg for how much time you actually are using up. How much time you spend on background music if there's no one speaking is also part of how much time you spend showing a particular image relative to that music. So this is why the timestamps are important and why they appear in the audio column. Again, the duration of your AVP is just 3 minutes. Use your time well. Count your seconds for each voiceover, soundbite, interview that's in your audio column. And the tip, read what you write. Read it out loud. I myself have a script, which is what I'm looking at. So I know that I'm spending too much time on one slide over another. So I want you to do that as well. Another thing that I want you to think about and be mindful of in relation to the format is for the video column. Make sure your videos and images matter. You don't have a lot of time. You might have a lot of videos and images that you see online. Pick them well. Make them matter. Think in terms of camera shots, graphics, and animation, but use these well as well. There isn't really a set of rules for when to use what, and I think that part of it is really about your creativity. But I want you to make sure that it's worth the time. Again, you're going to execute the script, and you don't want to be stuck with a set of things that just take too much time to put together, and which might not even be necessary for what it is you want to do. In the end, what you want to say is still the most important thing. How you say it is about making sure that you can balance the duration, the time duration that you have, but also the energy and resources that you have at your disposal. Note, video and sound elements should be written in all caps, not bold. All of this is, of course, something that you can see in a handout that I'm going to upload onto the Google Drive, but also I want you to make sure that you keep going back to sample scripts, because those actually already give you a sense of what it's supposed to look like. Okay, as I told you earlier, because there's an opening billboard, it means you have a closing billboard. And this is simpler than the opening billboard because you're just actually closing the whole AVP. And here, you generally just I don't know, end with the same music that you started off with, maybe, so that you can tie it together. You can show credits, who put things together, what your sources are. You can also put in a hashtag that's being used in relation to the issue, or a website that you want your viewers to go to after they watch the video. Okay, sample scripts are in the Google Drive. These are supposed to be to provide you with a set of guidelines for how to execute writing this AVP script. Because right now you have all the words, you have the sense of structure. I've tied those two together by giving you a sense of what content goes into which parts of the structure. So what goes into introduction, what goes into body, what goes into conclusion. This lecture gives you a sense of what the script looks like, why it's important that the format is something you are mindful of, and why you are being graded on format. Here you learned about the value of alignment. You learned about what is important in terms of what's on the audio side and what's on the video side. You learned about the importance of audio-video lock, what that actually means, and what that looks like on the page. You're also given a free hand in terms of creativity, as long as I said earlier, it's something that you can execute for your video classes. So I am all for really massive creativity and really, dreaming big. But at this point, I also want you to make it a script that's actually doable, because it makes it easier for you to just revise slightly for when you actually need to execute this AVP. The sample scripts in the Google Drive include not just other students' scripts, but also scripts that I've done for the videos that I've done for this class. So you have a sense of how I myself am doing scripts. And so this isn't something that you can let go of at this point. Scripts are crucial, and even this presentation right now has a script, and it's actually handwritten right in front of me, which is kind of absurd. See, still 2 columns. Okay? You can also message me for consultations. Again, I'm free for you all of this week, and I need for you to already be doing this script and to submit an AVP script within the week, so that you can give me time to read it and give you comments, and so you can have time to revise it. Submitting it much later will mean you won't have time to revise it anymore, and so your first draft grade will be the grade that you're getting for the AVP script. Because this is online term, the deadlines are flexible, but bear in mind that the sooner you can finish, the more time you have to revise. Bear in mind too that the AVP script is one of 2 scripts that you're doing. So after this one, there will be another script that you need to put together. And so the more quickly you work on this, the better. There's no other way of doing anything, especially anything difficult or scary, than to dive right in. There's no escaping it anymore. We're in the month of August, and term ends in 3 weeks. So I want you guys to already be working on this. I'm going to be available for you guys for consultations. Facebook Messenger is always easier. Anyone who messages me there gets responses quicker than they would via email. I want you guys to take a breath. I keep saying that. I want you guys to take a breath, look back on your worksheets, look back on our consultations, look back on my comments on those worksheets, and I'd like for you guys to get started.